At 75 years old, Butch Goring remains one of the most overlooked champions in hockey history, a man whose exclusion from the Hockey Hall of Fame stands as arguably the biggest snub in the institution's existence. 4 Stanley Cups, a playoff MVP trophy, a legendary trade that built a dynasty. Yet somehow, the man who transformed the New York Islanders from playoff chokers into unstoppable champions still waits outside the Hall's sacred doors, a victim of his own selflessness and the committee's rigid devotion to arbitrary statistical thresholds. Robert Goring began his professional journey in 1969 when the Los Angeles Kings selected him 51st overall in the 5th round of the NHL draft. Over 16 seasons, he appeared in over 1,100 games, scoring 375 goals and adding 513 assists for 888 career points. He was an 11-time 20-goal scorer who posted 60 points or more in 8 different seasons. For over a decade with the Kings, Goring served as the franchise's offensive engine, a consistent top 6 forward who proved year after year that he belonged among the league's most reliable centers. But here's where Goring's story takes a turn that would define his legacy and, tragically, doom his Hall of Fame chances. On March 10, 1980, the Kings made what historians universally consider the worst trade in franchise history. They sent Goring to the New York Islanders in exchange for Billy Harris and Dave Lewis, 2 players described as decent depth pieces but nothing more. The Kings thought they needed a change. They were struggling, hovering around 500, and Goring's -20 rating reflected the team's overall dysfunction. So they dealt away their foundational center, the man who had given them consistent production for over 10 years, believing he was replaceable. The aftermath was catastrophic for Los Angeles. Following Goring's departure, the Kings made only 3 playoff appearances over the next 5 seasons, advancing past the opening round just once. The 2 players they received stayed for 4 years but never came close to filling the void. The Kings had fundamentally miscalculated Goring's value, treating an organizational anchor like a simple commodity. Meanwhile, the Islanders got exactly what they needed, a veteran defensive specialist who could stabilize their talented but fragile roster. Within months, they captured their first Stanley Cup, then another, then another, then another. 4 straight championships, an achievement unmatched in North American professional sports to this day. Now, before we go any further, take a moment to subscribe to this channel and drop a comment below. Do you think Goring deserves a spot in the Hall of Fame, or did his career choices cost him his legacy? Let us know what you think, because this debate gets even more interesting from here. For the Islanders, Goring's arrival was the missing piece, the final element that transformed contenders into champions. He played just 12 regular season games after the trade, recording 11 points and a +7 rating, but his real impact came in the locker room and during high-pressure playoff moments. His character, proven by his Lady Byng and Masterton trophies won 2 years earlier, immediately stabilized the team environment. The Islanders coalesced around him, launching into a historic run that would define an era. Yet here's the cruel irony. Goring's role with the Islanders required him to sacrifice the very statistics that might have secured his Hall of Fame induction. With Los Angeles, he had been a high-scoring, offensive catalyst, piling up 705 points in 737 games, a pace that would have easily carried him past the magical 1,000-point mark that seems to unlock Hall of Fame doors. But the Islanders didn't need another scorer. They had Mike Bossy and Brian Trottier for that. They needed a defensive specialist, a face-off winner, a shutdown center who could neutralize opponents' top lines while providing leadership and stability. So Goring changed his game completely. Over 265 regular season games with the Islanders, he managed only 167 points. His offensive production dropped dramatically because he accepted a less statistically rewarding role for the sake of team success. This transformation shows up starkly in his plus-minus ratings. His career regular season mark ended at -26, dragged down by those struggling Kings teams. But in the playoffs, where championships are won, Goring posted a robust +22 over 134 games. When the stakes were highest and the competition fiercest, his defensive excellence and overall value peaked precisely when his team needed it most. The 1981 playoffs cemented Goring's legacy. During the Islanders' second consecutive Cup run, he won the Conn Smythe Trophy as playoff MVP, the ultimate validation that his playing ability and contributions were superior to everyone else during the championship pursuit. Over his 4 Cup runs, he contributed 62 playoff points, including 5 game-winning goals. Teammates consistently called him critical to their success. He was the catalyst who made everything work, the steady hand that kept a dynasty running smoothly through 4 consecutive championship seasons. Yet somehow, this decorated champion remains outside the Hall of Fame, trapped in a small, controversial group of playoff MVP winners who can't get inducted. The committee seems fixated on that 888-point total, falling just short of the unofficial 1,000-point benchmark that modern forwards are expected to reach. This exclusion reveals a fundamental failure to weigh team contribution and historical significance against raw cumulative statistics. Had Goring stayed in Los Angeles, maintaining his offensive role and his nearly point-per-game pace, he would have sailed past 1,000 points. Instead, he chose championships over personal glory, accepting a specialized defensive assignment that yielded 4 cups but cost him the counting stats that Hall of Fame voters seem to worship. The committee's inconsistency becomes glaring when you examine comparable cases. Bob Gainey made the Hall of Fame despite recording only 501 career points, far below Goring's total. Gainey's induction was justified by his 5 Stanley Cups and 5 Selke trophies, proving that defensive specialization and team success can override low scoring numbers. But Goring never had a chance to win a Selke because the award was introduced after his prime defensive years. Instead, he won a different collection of hardware that should matter just as much: the Conn Smythe, the Lady Byng, and the Masterton Trophy. That 1978 season when Goring won both the Lady Byng and Masterton represents something unprecedented in hockey history. He remains the only player ever to capture both awards in the same year. The Lady Byng recognizes sportsmanship and gentlemanly conduct combined with high-level playing ability. The Masterton honors perseverance, dedication, and commitment to hockey. Together, they paint a picture of a player whose character was as valuable as his skill, whose discipline and integrity lifted everyone around him. And that discipline shows up quantitatively in his penalty minute total: just 102 minutes over 1,107 career games, the fewest in NHL history for any player who appeared in more than 820 games. For a center who played heavy two-way minutes against top competition, accumulating so few penalties indicates unparalleled spatial awareness and hockey intelligence. He never compromised his team by taking careless penalties, never let aggression override discipline. The Hall of Fame's own criteria demand consideration of playing ability, sportsmanship, character, and contributions to team success. Goring excels in 3 of those 4 categories. His playing ability was validated by a Conn Smythe trophy and 4 championships. His sportsmanship and character earned him 2 prestigious awards in the same season. His contribution to his team literally transformed a franchise from playoff disappointment to historic dynasty. Yet the committee apparently values the accumulation of 1,000 points, an arbitrary round number, over demonstrable fulfillment of their own stated criteria at the highest level of competition. Consider the historical weight of what Goring accomplished. The March 10th trade is mentioned nearly every year as the all-time standard for deals that bring championships. Bill Torrey, the general manager who executed that trade, sits in the Hall of Fame as a builder. He's honored for constructing a dynasty, but the player whose acquisition made that dynasty possible, the catalyst whose arrival immediately transformed the Islanders from vulnerable contenders to untouchable champions, remains excluded. The logic breaks down completely. How can the architect be celebrated while the essential building block is ignored? The comparison to other dynasty contributors strengthens Goring's case. Scott Stevens made the Hall of Fame based partly on 3 Stanley Cups with New Jersey. Stevens was an elite defenseman with individual awards, including a Conn Smythe, but the comparison validates that dynasty contributions matter heavily for induction. Goring won 4 straight cups, participated in an unprecedented modern dynasty, and served as the foundational piece that made it all possible. To exclude him effectively minimizes the historical importance of the Islanders dynasty itself, suggesting that a central player in one of hockey's greatest achievements somehow fails to meet the necessary standard. The deeper you examine Goring's exclusion, the more it looks like a penalty for selflessness. He sacrificed individual statistics for team success, deliberately suppressing his offensive output to fill a specialized defensive role that his championship team required. That choice cost him roughly 150 regular season points over his Islanders years based on his previous pace. Those missing points would have pushed him past the 1,000-point threshold and likely secured automatic Hall of Fame consideration. Instead, Goring prioritized winning over personal glory, and now he pays the price for that nobility. His current exclusion therefore represents not a rejection of deficiency, but rather a punishment for perfection in a specialized role. The analytical evidence overwhelmingly suggests that the Hall of Fame selection committee has failed to adequately value the qualities it claims to prize. They've let a round number trump historical impact, let individual statistics override team contribution, let an arbitrary benchmark eclipse character and championship pedigree. So here we are with a 75-year-old champion still waiting for recognition that should have come decades ago. Goring's legacy isn't defined by what he scored, but by what he enabled. He was the catalyst who collapsed one franchise and launched another into immortality. He won 4 straight championships that haven't been matched since. He earned a playoff MVP trophy and a unique combination of character awards that no one else has replicated. He accumulated those achievements while maintaining unprecedented discipline and demonstrating elite two-way excellence when it mattered most. The Hall of Fame exists to honor hockey's greatest contributors, those who shaped the game's history and embodied its highest values. By its own criteria, Butch Goring belongs. His inclusion is necessary necessary to ensure the Hall accurately reflects the history and foundational characters of the modern NHL era. Until that happens, his exclusion will remain one of the institution's most glaring failures, a reminder that sometimes the most important contributions are the hardest to measure and the easiest to overlook. What do you think about Goring's Hall of Fame case? Does championship impact matter more than individual statistics, or should that 1,000-point benchmark remain the standard? Drop your thoughts in the comments below and don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into hockey's most fascinating stories.